Hi class, this video is going to help with the first section of statistics, and this one is really what is statistics. So statistical and critical thinking. So the first idea is, what is a statistical study? A study is just where you prepare, you analyze, and you make a conclusion from data. Okay, so we're going to talk about studies all the time, and we're going to learn different ways to analyze and well, all three really: prepare, analyze, and conclude, all the way through the whole class. So what is data? Data is just your collection of whatever you're going to collect. So if I am collecting observations about online classes versus in person, maybe I'm collecting people's time spent and their grades. So I would be collecting data from my classes. What is statistics? Statistics is just the science of planning, studying, and doing experiments, obtaining data, organizing summaries, presenting, oh, my T is missing on presenting, analyzing, and interpreting those data and drawing conclusions. Woo, big. Pause, write it down if you want. But what is statistics? We're going to basically take data and make conclusions. All right? And that's why many degrees require that, statistics. Because if you're a boss of even a business, you need to be able to take data and make conclusions about that data. So when we go to collect our data, the population it refers to everyone in your group of data. So this says it's the complete collection of data that we would like to make inferences about. So if I'm in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I want to talk about Sheridan, Wyoming, then that's my population. Now, if I do a sample of that population, then I'm just collecting some of those people to maybe do a study about. Okay. A census, hey, the census is actually going on right now for our population in the United States, but it's just a collection from every single person in the population. So a census is everyone. So right now, we want everyone to talk about how many people are in their family. All right? If you haven't done that yet, someone's going to start hounding you. Do it now. Okay, and then we just talked about the sample. So getting a census is really hard. You have to get every single person in the population. Everyone. Like, you can't leave out anybody. A sample of your population is way easier to get. It's a sub-collection of the members from your population. Now, you have to be careful because you could get a misleading sample, right? You have to be careful how you collect your sample, or your study is no good. So we're starting, we're actually using a different textbook than the other stats classes, mostly because they do this at the end of the class. Like, you talk about how to collect your samples at the end after you analyze all the samples. So I really like this textbook because it talks about, hey, be careful of your samples and what is the population first. Okay, so let me cover up that bottom part a little bit. Well, let's do this. Woof. All right, so an example. In the journal article, residential carbon monoxide detectors failure rates in the United States. It was stated that there are 38 million carbon monoxide detectors installed in the United States. When 30 of them were randomly selected and tested, totally random, right? Selected and tested, it was found that 12 of them failed to provide an alarm in a hazardous carbon monoxide condition. Okay, so this is our sample. This is what we're given. What is the population? It's 38 million people who have them, right? How many did we collect in our sample? We collected 30. Okay, so you might be asked, what is the population? What is the sample? Okay, and you might be asked to draw some conclusions, but not quite yet. So there was an example of a population in a sample. So we're really going to go over this in detail, but I'm going to give you the overview. This is in the PowerPoint if you would like your own to print off. I don't know that you need to, but just in case. But statistical and critical thinking. Where do we start? We start with we prepare. What is our context? What do the data represent? What is the goal of your study? Okay. What are the sources of your data? What is your sampling method? So preparing is important. What are we going to do? What is the point? How are we going to gather our data? What is our population? Okay, then we're going to move to analyzing. We're going to graph, we're going to explore, and we're going to use stats and technology to analyze our data. That is the majority of this course. Okay, and then we do conclusions. Significant. Is it significant? Did your study prove anything? Or did it just show what we already knew? So for example, if we already know that when you have a baby, it's going to be a boy or a girl, and you have about 50% chance for either one, if you have a study, is it significantly different? Like maybe you're showing that there's 75% boys. Okay, that's significantly different than what we already know. Then that means it's statistically significant. Basically, you're proving something different, not what we already know. And we'll talk about the other one. So let's look at that a little more in detail. So from this, the context and the sources of the data. So context, what do the data represent? And what is your goal? I don't know that we really need to go over that too, but let's look a little maybe more of the sources. Are the data from a source with a special interest so that there is a pressure to obtain a result that is favorable to the source? So sources of data. Oh, you couldn't see what I was even pointing at. That's all right. So sources of data. Where are you getting your data from? So for example, if I want to know how many people use Walmart versus Albertsons, well, if I go and stand outside of Walmart to get all my data, is that really a good way to get your data? No, you have to include people from all over. You can't just include people at both those stores, but you have to include, well, you have to basically make a study that is going to randomly pick those people. Okay. I don't know if I explained that super well, but sources of your data, you just have to be careful. So let's look at our sample method a little more. So voluntary response sample. So if you are giving a sample and you have a voluntary response, you're self-selected. That means you're choosing side you want in this sample. The pros are you can choose to respond if you want. What are the cons? Well, the results you got are only from my biggest thing with this is to think of Amazon. And you go on Amazon, review, right? What's the pros and cons of that review? Well, the pros are one can put a review if they bought the item. The cons are usually you're really mad at it, or you could get those fake ones in there that make it look good from the person selling it, because that is a thing, right? So pros and cons. So examples. You could have an internet poll, a mail-in poll, phone calls. And it's just my thoughts. I like Amazon as an example because it relates more to internet polls are big going on. There's internet polls about everything. Are they a good example of what's really going on? I don't know. I think they're skewed. I think that they show whoever is really heated about that and wants to respond. So it doesn't include everybody. All right, enough about that. You seek medical information online. Of the 1,072 users, 58% responded frequently. Okay, right? And the respondents are self-selected. That is what one of your questions on your homework might look like. What is wrong with them? population, right? It just may not be what everyone responds to. Think about your Amazon. If all of us bought one product, or everyone who bought that product responded, then it may have a different people who actually get to choose to respond. All right, let's go down to analyze. So analyze, we're going to explore data and explore exploring our data. Again, we're going to go over this specific things during the whole, and that is somebody who's way off or way lower that can throw off some of our data and our analyzing. So for example, maybe you have somebody who comes to class one time. That's an outlier, a person who didn't really participate, such as mean standard deviation described in chapter 3. So statistical summary. So we're going to summarize data. We're going to find the mean, the average. We're going to find how spread out it is, or a range. Okay, those are coming. How is our data distributed? That's like how it is. Ways to look at that, kind of like our range. If we're missing data, if people refuse to respond, stuff's all coming. And statistical methods, we're basically going to use, we're going to use StatCrunch for, okay, we could use Excel for some as well. You could use a graphing calculator. And then conclusion, let's bring that. I have a little bit more detail about the conclusions. So when we do this a little bit, we have our significant statistical significance. This means, is it really telling us something? This is achieved when we get a result that is very unlikely to occur in a common criteria. Then we statistical significance. If the likelihood of the event occurring is less than 5%. If you do a study and you get 50 of births statistically significant, no, it's way too close to 50. Close to what we already know is likely. Either you're having a boy or you're having a girl. So it needs to be something. A great example is I'm going to take a medication for my heart. Is it going to cause issues? Right? We do studies, and even if there's just you still have to look at that as a side effect, right? So if it's killing a bunch of people, the drug is, right? Then it's showing a recurrence of that. Okay, here's kind of my example I've been getting. If I get 98 girls, 9 squirrel girls, that is statistically significant because such a chance. Basically, you're really showing something new, like, whoa, 98% were girls? Now, okay, I'm using this as an example. You're not going to get that. But getting 52 girls in 100 births is not, because the event could easily occur by random chance, right? So practical significance, we were just looking at statistical. Practical is it possible? It is to find some finding, something about your study is effective, but common sense might finding does not make enough of a difference to justify its use. I find that this drug, no, I can't think of, now I can't think of, all right, I'm not going to give an example. 50%, 52% of the girls, statistically significant, is statistically lacks sense. Like 52% is only slightly above 50%. So would you want to spend time and money on a medication that said if you could if it's only 52%, I would say they if I was a girl, do I really, is it really very likely? No, practical sense tells me that's not really probably going to help. And just so you know, 48.8% is girls. A little more likely to have a boy. And that is from a reputable source. Okay. So, all right, I think that's really what you have questions for this section, but it is important to kind of think about what is your sample, what we're doing, why are we in this class? Because we're going to collect and we're going to make conclusions. That's what statistics is all about. I can't find my mouse. I'll end the recording.